You're watching A Comic Book Look. I'm your host, John. And this is the co-pilot, Tom. We're your responsible tour guides into the world of comics.
I like that. Well, to get started, this is our first show, so let's tell the people a little bit about ourselves. What are your 3 top ongoing titles at this time, John?
Well, being a guilty Marvel junkie, my top 3 comic lines are going to be my bread and butter, swear by it, Uncanny X-Men. Got started with comics actually through the 90s X-Men cartoon, so I really love Uncanny. Timeless. It's awesome. And then, of course, I got the Thunderbolts on deck. I love that team from start to finish. I pretty much have the whole run now, just working on getting those last few issues in. So, tons of history to that team. Love it. Last but not least is the Great White North, a.k.a. Alpha Flight. It's as close to the Midwest as we're going to get, because the Great Lakes Avengers don't cut it. Meet them a little bit. Oh. Well, you meet some of these people like in Thunderbolts and stuff, and you just shake your head. Midwest needs some help, Marvel.
Yeah, I hear that.
What about you?
Well, I agree. Uncanny and Thunderbolts are both 2 of my top books for sure, but I would say top 3 ongoing, they would make the list. Top 3 in no particular order, I'd say first one is Jonathan Hickman and his Future Foundation, FF. It's the run-on from Fantastic Four, which I have many hundreds of issues of, and so I will always read it, and it's just been more exceptional now than it's ever been. Thank you, Jonathan Hickman. Second, I would say Jonah Hex. They're always one and done stories about the biggest badass in the West, Jonah Hex, and you never have to read an issue before or issue after. You can pick up any issue. They're always one and done stories, and so I'd say that's probably definitely up there. And then probably my favorite book coming out right now, though, is Scalped. It takes place in a South Dakota Indian reservation. We are from South Dakota. Makes a tie. Also, Jason Aaron writes it and is doing by far the best work that he's done on anything else is on Scalped. We're coming up on issue 50. Probably by the time this comes out, it will already have been out too. So I'm super looking forward to that, but those are probably my favorite ongoing series at this time. So how about your favorite crossover or event of all time?
Well, again, being Marvel junkie, I actually, because I started rereading, started collecting again just when Dark Reign started, and so that has to be I think that would have to be my favorite crossover just due to that. However, and we didn't talk about this, I think that the Phoenix Saga is one that I totally liked in the 90s cartoons, and I've read some of the books, but my main goal is to get some of those hard copies, because I think that that's probably one of Marvel's biggest.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's funny you mentioned that. I just finished that at work like a week ago, so you can borrow that. Okay. I'll get that to you.
What about you?
Well, for favorite, I would say I'm not a big fan of crossovers or events per se, unless they're done really well. I don't like when they tie other books into it that take my story out of it, but there has been good ones. The best one that I can remember is No Man's Land from Batman, when Gotham shut down and everybody had their own section of Gotham. There's like the Joker's area, the Penguin's area. That was the Gotham City Police Department area, and Batman was nowhere to be seen. That was an awesome crossover. But that was a while ago. I think that was like in the early 2000s. My favorite recently is definitely The Second Coming, X-Men.
Yep.
The Hope story, it started Messiah Complex, and then that wasn't as good, I didn't think. But Second Coming, the whole total, it came all the way through. It had really great art, and the X-Force, I remember, and my favorite X-Men, Cypher, is in it, so of course I loved it. And seeing Hope come all full around as a baby to being, a growing woman and
got her own team now and everything.
Exactly.
But speaking of favorites, and we had Cypher in there, but we also had somebody leave.
Yeah, it was a sad day.
Nightcrawler.
It was a sad day.
That was a sad. If that's a spoiler for you, shame on you. Get
it together,
right?
Don't call yourself an X-Men fan.
And if you didn't catch, what was it, Wolverine 1000, where he held the piano up in memory of Nightcrawler, read that issue because that's huge character building.
Also, a one and done story by Jason Aaron. That you're exactly correct. I know that episode is great. It's after Nightcrawler's already dead. Nightcrawler had Wolverine do like one more thing for him, carry a piano up to like a monastery at the top of a mountain, and just like what he learned from Kurt and his spirituality and his faith. That was a great issue. But worst crossover of all time is Dark Reign. I don't know how he thinks it's the best. It tied in every single book. Wow. Marvel put out thousands of comics, and only about 12 were probably any good at all. That was the worst. So that sucks that that's your favorite.
Wow.
But
I can't. No, I will not argue that, because when you get into, what is it, Zodiac, the Killer, the Hood stuff, I wasn't getting into that so much. You have to understand, diehard Dark Avengers fan right here. I'm all about that.
Yeah, and
it ties into the Thunderbolts, right?
Well, yeah, I guess.
Relevance
and
there.
I like the Thunderbolts. That was an okay book during that time. But then they lost all their characters because the Thunderbolts were basically the Dark Avengers beforehand.
Exactly. So it's kind of like an expansion of my favorite. Exactly.
Well, what's your least favorite crossover of all time?
Mine, Marvel. I love you, but Necrosha, whatever you call it. I mean, you had some cool characters in there. Like, there were some of the Hellions rising up and everything. I actually went back and bought New Mutants issues and stuff so I could meet the original Hellions. Like, what's Emma Frost been crying about all these issues? I hadn't read that before, and that's some pretty powerful stuff. You got Trevor Fitzroy coming through with the Sentinels, and everybody got schooled. But I mean, the Hellions just got wiped across the board. But seeing them, like, if I reread it now, I still wouldn't like the crossover or the whole event because you can't see anybody. There's one issue that Tom and I were like, "Who the hell is this?"
It's unreal. I agree completely. Necrosha was one of the worst.
It had
Celine
potential.
Just could have been so cool, and she wasn't at all. And that one issue, who did it was Clayton Crane. It was a crossover between X-Force and I think X-Men Legacy.
Yeah.
Or no, X-Force.
New Mutants was in there.
Yeah, New Mutants and X-Force, I think, were the two that it was across. But it was so bad. Clayton Crane, some people just absolutely love him, and I have seen him do Spider-Man work where it's actually really bright and it's really cool, but he is like 100% computers. I don't think he pencils or anything beforehand. It's straight to computers, and he makes it look like it's on computers. Yeah. And during those Necrosha, everybody was black. There was 4 pages in a row where it was just black panels and red eyes, and you couldn't tell who was supposed to be saying what or anything. It was one of the worst crossovers, and it came out during Blackest Night and completely ripped Blackest Night off. So that was another thing why it was so bad. I agree that one's almost as bad as.
There's
Dark
also
Reign.
Another horrible one just recently that happened, and I don't know if you're going to agree with this or not, but Chaos War. Okay, the only pro about that whole thing, well, 2 things I guess. One, Warpath's brother, what's his name? The X-Men. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
the Native American X-Men.
Thunderbird or Noah, I don't know.
I don't know, but he got a second chance. That's cool and all. But Alpha Flight came back, yay. So that's about the only plus though from that. I mean, seriously, you got like Galactus Galactus is one of my role models too. I mean, go hard or go home. But I just seeing him like struggle like that it was kind of a different take on it. I thought it was poorly executed overall because something that grand deserved a better presentation, and the artwork didn't deliver for me, the plot just did not deliver for me, and Hercules of all people saving the world? Are you nuts?
Well, up until that point, I mean, those guys had a huge run of Hercules and Amadeus Cho, where, they're goofy and they're silly and they're wisecracking and always swigging beer, and Amadeus is always looking out. And then,
but he's
to take it to try to complete that run with
Yeah.
Hercules, not being that person at all and being the most all-powerful god.
Right.
It was just kind of silly. It was
If they
too
did it-
fast.
right.
The main Chaos King, I think, was the main bad guy, and I mean, you've never heard of him before.
Yeah.
I think that was his first book, at least that I've heard of him in.
Yeah.
And then you knew nothing about him. He just thrown in, and you're supposed to know that he's all-powerful. So
Yeah.
I agree. Chaos Wars.
It was bad. It was out of nowhere, and then it was over, and there's really not a whole lot of mention to it.
Oh,
Except
exactly.
for the fact that Alpha Flight's back.
Yeah, well, Andy made your top ongoing list, and there's been a 0.1 and a 1 issue. So I guess you can still consider that ongoing. It's going to probably be canceled after 6 issues, but hopefully not.
It is a mini-series, though.
Oh, is it a miniseries?
Yeah,
Oh.
of, whatever of. And that's gosh. But, yeah, that's my rant of the week.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Those are, crappy crossovers. But for sure, well, now let's get to the bread and butter of this show. What we'll do this time, this is our first show, and we're going to do a review of Thunderbolts. It was a double-sized issue, I think issue 159, and it had 4 different stories. Had the main story written by Jeff Parker, which was the Thunderbolts story. And then it had a story of Moonstone in the Women's Ward, and that was actually written by Joe Caramagna, which I thought was kind of cool to see because I have seen his name in comics for 20 years as the letterer. He's the letterer guy. He's always has been. And so it's kind of cool to see him. Obviously he has an in, and so he got to do his pitch and get his book out there. I thought that was cool. And then there was another story that I almost liked the best with Ghost, and then the Warden, Walker, I think is the Warden's name. And then the final story was a Crossbone story.
Yep.
So let's start first with the Thunderbolts. What'd you think?
The Thunderbolts, honestly, it's kind of a neat development for the team. I mean, just seeing a Spider-Man villain in the Thunderbolts, I kind of like that. It's like an unofficial crossover kind of thing. But we've seen them before, the Green Goblin and Venom, and but the Shocker's kind of a neat one. I'm familiar with them, so it's kind of cool to see them in this context. Whether or not they're heroic or not.
Yeah, they're obviously not heroic. I mean,
what a lineup, though.
Yeah, it is cool. I mean, I agree.
Mr. Hyde and Troll.
And Troll has a really cool costume. I mean, a costume that's so ridiculous, but it's so cool every time they draw her. It's really neat. And then Centurious or Centurion or
and Boomerang.
Throw
in the mix.
Okay. Boomerang, who's just, he seems like a DC. He seems like a DC character, but whatever. And isn't he Rogue of Flash? But anyway, it was they're definitely not good.
No.
What happens is it's a Fear Itself tie-in.
Yeah.
But it's still a very good issue. Jeff Parker knocks it out of the park with his Thunderbolt story. It's the whole Thunderbolt Island. I don't know. Is that what it's called?
The Raft.
The Raft. The Raft, where they keep all the prison, where they keep all the bad super villains. The hammer is shot right into the middle of it. Juggernaut has picked it up in the last issue and swung it one time and basically takes out the whole entire raft. And
talks in gibberish.
Yeah. Yes.
It's not even like in kanji or
word.
anything. It's just, I don't get it. I don't know what he's saying.
Yeah, and you have to be the real Allfather to understand. But it ends up being showing how there's people trying to escape from the prison, and the Thunderbolts, the actual Thunderbolts, are away at first and they're not able to help, so the Thunderbolts have to help out, and their first instinct is to take off. Let's get out of here. This is stupid for us to not have our chance.
Yeah, they got those pesky nanites though, which is why they're serving the law.
But not really, because Sintra has said that he could deactivate them, and he says, "Why should I deactivate these when we know that everything's going on? Who knows? The Avengers are going to come, the X-Men are going to come.
So
he says something like that. How far are we going to get? Let's wait until they trust us. We're part of the Thunderbolts. They put us halfway across the world. And then we get out of there, because he can somehow take their nanites away, but then still have it look like they have them. And so, at least that's what I kind of picked up. And so that's smart And I mean, it's fun to see like Boomerang and the Shocker, going with them and
Yeah.
following him. And this Mr. Hyde has a great moment where he snaps a guy's neck, and then all the other Thunderbolts are like, and he's like, such a shame how many casualties they have and things like this. And the other guys are just like, oh yeah, whatever you say, that was a casualty. When he obviously just straight murdered that guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, Thunderbolts, good story though.
Yep.
Do you think it's good? What would you rate it on 5 stars?
I'd probably go ahead and give it, just for character development, seeing them interact like that, probably say about a 4.37.
Nice. Yeah, I would say 4. I would say 4 stars too. I mean,
but seriously, it was definitely a good move. I think just to get us more familiar with it, because the last issue is so divided between the main team and this team, so it's cool for them to have their own little spotlight thing. I thought the 4-story approach was a really good idea in terms of what's going on at the ref, because there's a lot going on, so why not cover a lot of ground?
And that is cool because it's like, if it is going to have to be a Fear Itself tie-in, they at least did it right, and made it cool. The next story was Moonstone in the women's prison.
Yep. And that is an interesting one as well. Moonstone has led a very interesting crime-fighting career as part of Norman Osborn's esteemed Dark Avengers, as the coolest Miss Marvel that's ever graced the ink pages. How?
What a disgrace.
She pretended to be Miss Marvel, and I don't know. Moonstone throughout the whole series has just been psychotic. Like she's like a psychiatrist, and she gets in people's heads, and she knows how to get under people's skin. She's kind of sit to the side kind of thing and let everyone else make the call, but she's kind of playing the game underneath a little bit, and that's how she's always been. So this kind of a role for her, corralling the women and stuff, and being in kind of a tough spot with this one gal that can dampen her powers. Mm-hmm. And playing it cool, that's just totally part of her personality. She knows what she's doing. She's always in it for number one, and that's just Carla Selfin.
Yeah, and I agree. It was definitely a good little story. I mean, it was just a short one, and it was cool though to see even when she doesn't have her powers, she's still pretty cool, calm, and collected under pressure, and she's ready to get her powers back right away and take advantage of the situation for herself. Yeah. And so it fit the character very well. I mean, I think during Dark Reign she was almost treated like a floozy a little bit. They always try to say, oh, she was hooking up with Bullseye and hooking up with this kind of a little bit. They didn't say that, but they always kind of like pretended. And
I don't know though, because you saw them on that table in Victoria.
Exactly. I mean, and so that was like, I didn't like Moonstone as a floozy. I like her as the smart doctor, and Thunderbolts a little bit better.
It is interesting though, because I just picked up on this the other day too. I was thinking about that. Bullseye was dressed up as Hawkeye. I'm getting the two mixed up. That's how great it was. But she actually did date the original Hawkeye for quite a few issues. Yeah, back in like the issue 40s in that range or so.
Oh, Thunderbolts or
Avengers? Hawkeye does the Thunderbolts for a while, and she was kind of playing him like a harp, if you will, for a few. So whether or not there's something there or not, I don't know. There's a scene in the List Avengers one-shot where Ronan breaks into the Avengers. I know, what a name. It's all on the name. Ronan breaks into the Avengers Tower, though, and then she's like, the cameras are going to be on, so I have to fire my energy at you, and then a shield pops up, and she's like, lucky you. So she didn't have to fight him, but she was willing to, because she's, of course, looking for number one.
Yeah. And that's good. I mean, when she was first on the Thunderbolts, I was like, well, that's stupid, because she just got done being obviously part of the Dark Avengers, so she should be locked away. Yeah. But she is. I mean, like you said, she's been in the Thunderbolts forever. She's a key member of the Thunderbolts.
Agreed.
So it's cool to keep her around.
She is always the wild card. I'll tell you that.
Well, the next story,
wild card.
Your wild card. My wild card happened to be my favorite character in Marvel Comics at this time is Ghost. I mean, he is so cool, just the conspiracy theorist. He has a completely different way of looking at things, of what's right and what's wrong, and what the government is, and I think that's pretty cool. I mean, I'm also I like conspiracies, and so I think that's really cool. In this story, it's the main guardian of the prison or whatever, the warden,
yep.
The warden and Ghost, and they have to kind of control the situation with the prison, when Ghost was probably kind of just going there to save the warden, and then as soon as he gets there, the warden just puts him to work, because he knows he has things to do. And Ghost has a perception of what the Warden is like, and as he is, stone cold, hates criminals. There's black and white with him. There's no gray. And so, Ghost, on the other hand, where he lives in the gray. I mean, there's no right or wrong. I mean, it's all circumstantial. And so that was kind of cool seeing how, through the actions of the Warden, Ghost realized that, he's not a bad guy, and he really does want to rehabilitate, the other supervillains that are in there.
Yep.
Not just wants to kill him. There's like one time where there's an area of the raft that's for supervillains that can control like gas,
Yep.
Or turn their body into gas, and so it's like completely sealed off.
Airtight.
And so, those, as soon as that happened, it seals off so those people can't escape, and so they don't have any oxygen or anything, and these, even in their gaseous forms, they're going to die in there. And so, the Warden makes it,
priority.
a huge priority to get there and then, release it, and that, surprises Ghost a lot, that he could have just worried about himself and worried about the prison, but he's really worried about these people's lives, even though they are all criminals and supervillains. And so it was kind of cool to see, Ghost come full circle and then, like the Warden at the end.
Yeah. The prisoners weren't too happy about that.
No.
There were some choice words fired at the Warden.
That kind of showed it too, that Ghost sees that the Warden just takes those words and doesn't even care about him because he knows that he's a good person.
Yep.
And so that's pretty cool too. And Ghost is just cool. I mean, he can become invisible. He doesn't take showers. You don't know anything about him. He can walk through walls. He can float. He's not strong in any way. He's not honorable. He's He says even in this, he's like, the only reason I'm here is because you have a nanite leash right on me. And so, I mean, that kind of, I like him even more, though.
The one thing I wanted to get more familiar with Ghost, too, was actually the little bit of Dark Reign where Tony Stark was pretty much on his deathbed, and Ghost had, there's some scene about him, going after him, I guess, and trying to just take care of business, but it didn't. It ended up, he had this thing in his head, Ghost had this he just didn't like Tony Stark. It was something about the company.
Yeah,
and then he got corrected. And
yeah, because he felt Tony Stark is the corporate conglomerate, and he's the main bad guy. He's the man. Yeah, and so that's
and then it was just a simple conversation, I believe, with the two of them, and it was over like that. I believe it was probably the issue where they him and Iron Man and Thor, and then went to the swamp.
I don't remember exactly where it was, but it was 2 or 3 issues where the Ghost was in Incredible Iron Man, and those were some good issues.
Or Man-Thing. They went to Man-Thing's alternate world with, and then the Thunderbolts tried to make a break for it, and there was a little bit of hoopla. Captain America versus Crossbones, and But yeah, I mean, honestly, Ghost he's a pretty cool character. Tom's obviously favorite issue was A Ghost Story.
Yep, exactly.
And throughout that
was
issue,
only 5 or 6 issues ago too, and that was a good one.
And they bleeped his name out with black rectangles.
But that's cool. I mean, that's
you just don't know.
You don't want to get to the point like Wolverine or something.
Right.
Where you know every
Wolverine's
single
name.
thing about
Right.
him, and it's
you meet his dad.
James Howlett. No,
yeah.
I mean, we know him as Logan, and it shouldn't be that. I mean,
don't get me going on his son. That's for a whole different.
Yeah, and so exactly.
We'll do that one closer to Mardi Gras.
That's a whole issue in itself. But all right, and then the last story is the Crossbone story.
Yeah. Overall, he was always when he joined the this new wave of Thunderbolts, it was just an odd fit. I'll be honest with you. There was an issue a couple issues back where he got some superpowers on top of the fact that he's just a kick-ass supervillain. So that in itself is something that I think is going to be explored coming up here. The story closes with him showing up at someone's doorstep. He escaped the raft. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of him coming up. Hopefully we'll get to see some further interaction with Captain America as well, because those two just don't get along.
Yeah, and they kind of almost picked him at the beginning because he was the bad one. They wanted to have a bad one in there, that would always choose evil, so they could really see if the Thunderbolts were going to stay, good or go with Crossbones. And I mean, in this story, he befriends a person. They're working together the whole entire time. Spoiler. warning. At the end, he double crosses him, and then that's like the last page when you actually think he takes all the information that guy gave him, and then he takes that guy's plan, and then sets him up to look like he actually got crushed by a rock. It gives him more time to escape because they think that Crossbones is crushed, and he ends up stabbing that dude in the back like right at the end, and then going to Juggernaut's grandma or something like that.
Honestly, I didn't catch that well.
Oh yeah.
Was it?
It was like something about she helps people cross the border or something. It was like a relative of Juggernaut, I think. I don't know, something like that.
Okay.
But yeah, it was still a good story. I mean, it was overall. I mean, it was a $5 issue, so that I don't like paying $5 for comics.
What's up with that?
But it was 40 pages of art. 40 pages of art. I mean, I can handle that.
It was a good size issue.
You know, we're getting 20 pages of art for $3 from DC. So, you know, that's here nor there, and it was a good issue. Before we wrap everything up, I wanted to bring up this week in the DC comics, all the comics. Recently, DC has been having these fill-ins. It was the Super 8 comic for a while, but then the last 2 weeks, it has been Subway Justice League. And they've taken like 2 or 3 sports stars, and then have them interact with the Justice League and eat Subway with avocados.
Yeah.
And it
Plug in those avocados, Subway.
It is, I mean, we haven't seen something like this in a long time, and so that's why it's almost just so ridiculous. It's fun. It reminds me of the Hostess commercials at the end of your comics, or the beginning of your comics in like the 90s and 80s, where, you know, you'd flip through the page and then you'd think you have another page and you realize it's a Hostess ad at the end. And, you know, all they somehow are tying Justice League, like Green Lantern, Superman, and Wonder Woman, but they don't really have a big role at all. Yeah. And the last one, a basketball player has to stop Grodd, and he does it by bouncing a basketball at his face.
And then they lose control of the army of primates.
So since he can't think straight and control these primates because he got hit with the basketball, Grodd is stopped, and they get to eat their avocado.
And they get to slam dunk because Green Lantern uses his green powers to levitate the basketball player to do a slam dunk. Thanks, Green Lantern.
And he like wins the dunk contest with that. Yeah, it was so dumb.
The power of avocados. It's probably, you know, I bet they're trying to play off the fact that they're green.
Who knows?
I don't know what Superman was doing in there. He was in there for like 2 panels. I shouldn't overanalyze this.
They're so. I mean, they're in every DC book. It is so silly to come across, but I mean, it's kind of fun.
Are they all the same one?
Yeah, it's the same one per week. Like the first one, it was, you know, other people, but just as ridiculous. But yeah, well, that was our first show. Thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you made it all the way through and you're still watching at this time because, you know, then we really appreciate it.
If you don't read comics, you're missing out, trust me.
I know, it's the greatest storytelling medium that, at least that we think. I mean, we love movies, we love books, both of us, but comics are the best. I mean, it's the best way to tell a story, and, you know, not enough people are in it these days. So, you know, go out there, grab this Exercise Thunderbolts issue. You'll love it. You know, grab a couple DC books so you can read that Subway ad. You won't be disappointed, or you may be. But anyway, you know, thank you for watching. You can contact us at a comic book look at gmail.com. Shoot us a line. You know, if you have any questions or have any ideas for any shows that you'd want to see in the future.
Yeah. Any topics you want us to cover, anything like that. And definitely.
Yeah, but other than that, thank you so much, and until next week.